Drop that.
The last episode from My Hero Academia actually really surprised me at how much I liked it. It had a different pace than what we've been having for the last couple of weeks with what's been going on with My Hero, that it's different enough that I actually didn't mind it. I didn't mind watching it. I thought it was a fun episode. But for this week with My Hero Academia, we're returning back to pretty much what is the finale of the provisional licensing exams, because, well, this episode from My Hero Academia, which is episode 59, is the finale of it. So the episode pretty much just begins with the opening, like how it always does. But for some reason, it decides to cut back to 3 weeks ago when, like, the high-ups, like the executives, I guess, or whatever you want to call them, are deciding on how they want to, do the provisional licensing exams and how they actually want to score, obviously the students who are participating in it, and with the first part of the exam and the second part of the exam. And then they cut to how they lost All Might and how he was, the strongest and the most charismatic, and he was the best hero that they had, right? So they're trying to make up for not having someone like All Might by having pretty much an army of, pro heroes in their arsenal. So however you want to take it, that pretty much works, I guess, because we already know Deku is going to become, the number one hero at some point in the series, so it's not really that big of a deal, so it just kind of makes sense anyways. But we cut back to where we left off 2 weeks ago for episode 57, I believe, with Gang Orca and him pretty much busting through and trying to, pretty much create another scenario of what could happen when you are a pro, which is you have to save and rescue a whole bunch of civilians, but you also have to remember that sometimes there are going to be occasions where you actually need to attack, a villain who could possibly be in the area. And for this instance, they're using Gang Orca as the villain. So once he shows up, we cut to Todoroki, and he's going to go and try to do whatever. And Shindo, the guy from one of the other schools, I forget what school he's actually from, he decides to use his quirk, which is Vibrate, which is just a whole bunch of sound waves. He puts his hands on the ground, and he pretty much destroys the ground. Gang Orca fucking just wrecks him. So it's hard for me to explain what his quirk does, but he pretty much can cause an ultrasonic sound wave that can paralyze someone. So he does that to Shindo, and everybody else starts showing up, and they're like, oh, we gotta move everyone, here who's at the place where we have to take care of them. We have to move them to a different place. So they all do that, and the episode continues on, and Inasa, the guy with the fucking wind kind of quirk or whatever, I forget what his quirk name actually is, but then there pretty much just becomes a scenario, or rather not really a scenario, but a situation where him and Todoroki are obviously kind of, I guess enemies at this point, and we actually get a little bit of exposition through why that is the case, and instead of explaining it, they do show it. And the way that they show it is through flashbacks. And depending on how you feel about flashbacks, you might not really like it. But pretty much, we know this guy. He's all about heroes and passions, and there's exposition about him pretty much liking everything and anything. As long as it was, I guess, alive. I guess he was all about passion, and that's just really all he is. And then he met Endeavor. In Endeavor, he doesn't like him because he seems that kind of guy who doesn't have passion in his heart. He doesn't really care about anything. He just cares about, being the strongest, and how he had, hate in his eyes. They're really cold eyes, and he doesn't like that. So, he doesn't like Endeavor, and that's kind of the way that they try to explain it, but the way that they showed it, right? How do I explain it? So the guy, when he was younger, when he first saw Endeavor, he was trying to get a fucking, autograph, because he really likes the pro heroes and stuff like that, right? Endeavor swipes, or swipes the fucking notebook and pen that he had in his hand and says, "You're in the way." And then, obviously the guy saw the hate in his eyes and how they were cold. And it continues on, and Todoroki, is still having, hatred towards, his dad. He doesn't really like his dad all too much. So that burning hatred that he has inside of him is, conflicting with him, and he's not acting, really smart. But all at the same time, before that actually happens in the scene, there's still the flashback, and the episode continues on, and he meets Todoroki at the entrance exam for recommendations, because remember, Todoroki actually made it through recommendations, and that's the reason why he's like UA now. Inase was there for the recommendations as well, but of course we know that he turned it down. Most likely he turned it down because of Todoroki, because he saw Todoroki and he immediately knew that was, he was the son of Endeavor, because he kind of acted the same way and he had the same kind of like hatred in his eyes. So basically the guy is an Endeavor hater, and Todoroki even says it himself. Their quirks actually conflict each other, because one of it is wind, and Todoroki has fire, and the wind is pushing the fire away towards different directions. It's about to hit Shindo, who's like still paralyzed and can't move. Deku shows up and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then they kind of like snap out of it, and they're like, "Okay, we gotta do this, that, whatever." Eventually, Todoroki gets stuck by one of Gang Orca's like guns, like which has some sort of material. I forget what they called it, but basically kind of stops people from moving and stuff like that. There's still a little bit of conflict between Todoroki and the other guy, and eventually they can't move. They're stuck and they can't move whatsoever. Everyone else is trying to move all of the civilians to a safer place. Deku's doing whatever he's doing in the episode. To be honest, he didn't really do too much, to be honest. And the episode continues on. Finally, the two fucking assholes are like, "Okay, we gotta set aside our differences. We gotta fix this situation that we caused, because this could have ended off a lot worse." And it did, kind of, in a way, but now they have to fix it. So then they cause a fucking fire tornado by combining their quirks together, and Gang Orca, he can't get out of it, and that's pretty much like the worst case scenario that he could be in, because they actually explain it through exposition from one of the goons that he can't be in there because some sort of reason I actually don't remember, but he can't be in there for too long, and he actually starts like pouring water on his head, and that pretty much kind of disperses like the whole like tornado away. Deku fucking shows up out of nowhere with a surprise attack and kicks the fuck out of Gang Orca, but of course he blocks the attack. But and then the provisional licensing exam actually ends, and it's kind of funny because they said, yeah, all the civilians were rescued, whatever, and it was actually Bakugo, Kirishima, and Kaminari who were the last people to actually save anybody, and they did. So the provisional licensing exam ends, and Gang Orca is like talking about like the scenario that he was in. It was really dangerous, and the surprise attack that he got from Deku, Midoriya, and he could have honestly lost. That kind of seemed like what he was trying to explain to the audience, that he could have actually lost if it had went on any longer than it actually did. And then the episode ends off with a cliffhanger with, Deku obviously trying to look for his name, and the episode ends seemingly like he found it, but then it fucking ends and it goes into credits. I'm like, you bastards. So we get to the previews, and the previews kind of show that Bakugo is trying to talk to Midoriya, right? And it almost kind of seems like it just happened out of nowhere after the exams, and that night, he just gets called out by Bakugo, right? Seemingly out of nowhere. And I guess they're going to talk about something. And they're going to be talking about, Deku's quirk, because the title for next week's episode is A Talk About Your Quirk, meaning Midoriya's quirk, and how that could potentially be linked to All Might, because we know that Bakugo isn't an idiot. So he might actually be putting two and two together and be realizing that All Might and Deku are connected in one or more ways than just, him being a teacher at UA. So that's pretty much the episode. It was really fun to watch, and there was a lot of action. The episode looked really good, and there was a couple of new soundtracks that weren't there before, and we got a lot of exposition with some of the characters that we saw in the provisional licensing exams, and I hope we can actually see more of them in future episodes. So that's pretty much the end of the episode, which means that's the end of the video. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button for more videos just like this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'm out. Peace.